The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to episode 84 of The Catholics of Oz. The Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods or science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity. You can hear it right now on The Catholics of Oz. Hello, I'm Lindsay Sads, and welcome to episode 84 of The Catholics of Oz. So good to have you with us today. For this episode, I am joined by my co-host, Lino Sabol. Lino, how are you going this morning?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Lindsay. Yes, I'm doing okay. I was hoping the weather would be slightly bit better for spring.
It's not such a good spring day today. Yeah, we've had some good spring weather, but today it's a bit cold and muggy. But cold. You take the good with the bad in spring. At least it's not all bad, exactly. which is exactly. Oh, winter was so cold. Well, that's what I heard about. We were in Queensland, but that's another story we can talk about later on. Someone who was in Queensland. Yes, we've had this. We've had this. I've berated you already on a podcast about this. Yeah.
I wanted to start on a positive note that it's good to see that everyone's out again and getting busy again. So Melbourne's getting in a normal state, and it's a great thing we're having music festivals back. Mm-hmm. I've seen posters about quote me, now it's called the Melbourne Royal Show. It's not called the Royal Melbourne Show. Anyway, it's a show. Melbourne Show's back again. And it's great to see. It's coming back.
AFL Grand Final. We'll have full crowds.
AFL.
Yep.
That's right.
At the end of this month.
And I was so, in a sense, happy and proud to see that the AFLW teams are all complete now. So there's all, what's it? Oh gosh, 28 to 16. Oh my gosh, Jerry will kill me now. 16 players on the AFL side and 16 for the AFLW side. Yeah. So Lindsay, we have an Essendon Bombers women's team, and they're doing well. And
I was going to say, they're doing well because the men's team. I'm a Bombers fan, but
that was a bit controversial, but it's
been controversial for the last 5 or 6 years.
For us, that's true. But the women are very. They played their first match. They won the first match.
Excellent.
They lost the second, and they're playing a third. But it's actually look. I'm really excited to see this league do well, and it's a good. Yeah, it's pretty tough in a bit. And I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying it's just like, wow, okay, they're really getting into it. And it's very
AFL by its very nature is just rough and tumble, isn't it? It's people crashing into each other and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could ask Dom.
Yeah.
Well, I asked Dom if he's watched an AFL match. Probably we've asked him, but I don't know what he says.
Well, we'll be having him on soon, so we'll have to throw that. Yeah. So he's got time to prepare. He's got 2 weeks to prepare because he's hearing this.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And also,
for homework, Dom, you need to watch an AFL match.
Probably.
What's going on? Probably. That's the reaction usually for
maybe our modern age, maybe right now. You can watch the older ones, and see what's going on, but they were very rough. They were very rough. But a lot of changes and rules and everything. But but
honestly,
also, I think
the thing is, let me just say, I watch an AFL match and half the time I don't know what's going on either. I'm very odd in that way.
I just think, they changed that rule. And sometimes they're consistent and with the referees and everything. But look, it's the name of the game.
It's the name of the game.
Sorry, it's the way the game is, and we got passionate supporters that you can see on TV. I go, whoa. Okay, anyway.
At least, can I just say, finally, and I don't know if it's because the AFL moved from, I think it was from Channel 7 to Channel 9 or whatever it was, but when it used to be Channel 7's baby, they used to always...
Oh, it's still Channel 7.
Oh, maybe it was...
Yeah, it's still Channel 7.
All right, well then, thank goodness that someone at Channel 7 woke up then and decided, because every year what they used to do was when the grand final would come up, they would play the Holy Grail like as their music leading into commercials, and every year without fail. And I got so sick of it. It's like, can you pick a different song? Can you just find something else, because you've made it a cliche and it's getting very annoying now. Like, there are so many other songs. Can you...
There are plenty of other songs out there.
Yes, and they haven't done it in years now. So someone finally, they must have had a change of hands. Like someone who's has a playlist of more than one song.
I wouldn't be surprised. Channel 7 have changed managers for many years. So I think that was that. I had to change, and then different songs will like even more artists, a bit more radio time. And just quickly, of course, a bit of a downer, but but it's a heartwarming story. We heard that, in a sense, that our Queen Mother has passed away.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth II. Yes, yeah.
When I say it's a heartwarming thing, but it's a memory of her. That's the heartwarming thing, and
absolutely.
Not of her passing away, but her memory and her legacy that she has
absolutely
left.
Amazing long reign as queen and all the world events that she's seen. Well, just on that, by coincidence, right? So now at time of recording, we heard the news yesterday in Australia. So just point that out.
In Australia.
Because this, by the time people hear this, it'd be a week ago that it's happened. Now, just so you know, I was in Warragul for the last 2 days for a religious education leaders conference. And at the hotel where we stayed overnight for the conference, at the conference center where we had our sessions, there was a photo of Queen Elizabeth II. And one of my colleagues pointed out, he goes, go check out that photo. So I had a look, right? And it has it's a photo of her, quite young, from 1954. It's got her signature on it. And it says, this photograph was signed by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II after visiting Warragul on Wednesday, the 3rd of March, 1954. So there happened to be a signed photo of her hanging on the wall. I was like, whoa,
nice.
Massive coincidence. Yeah. I was like, we were like, wow, just talk about the timing of, there just happens to be this photo of her, signed photo from 1954, which is amazing. So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So obviously condolences to her family and I guess gratitude for the good things that she did during her time as queen as well. So
she has turned a lot of things happening in the monarch and
and her, just the family problems and everything, just
exactly.
leading the family through all the issues that have gone on there.
Issues that have been going on.
Yeah,
exactly. And she's been a great queen and a monarch for us here in Australia.
Yes.
And what I really love seeing her and looking at her on the TV and the news is her smile.
Yes, yeah.
When she smiles, I feel that is a genuine smile.
Yeah.
Of maybe a cheeky queen.
Yeah.
Who used to back in the
she did have a sense of humor behind closed doors. That's what's been coming out now. Yeah. People would talk about some of the anecdotes. Yeah, things you wouldn't say while she's alive, but But now that she's passed, people are telling personal stories that are that are heartwarming, like you mentioned, hearing some lovely, just her sense of humor as well. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, well, let's pray that the monarchy will always be a force for good, because that there's always challenges with the family issues that go on, and all the things that go on behind the scenes. So let's pray that that there will be a force for good moving into the future. We need as many forces for good in as many institutions as we possibly can get these days. So so let's pray that they'll be part of that. All right, so before we continue the show, if you're new to listening to the Catholics of Oz, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast player. We always welcome new people to listen and to interact with us, so welcome if you are listening for the first time. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and some positive feedback on your favorite podcast player so we can hear from you, and also so it helps us to reach new people as well. So thank you so much if you do that. We do notice when people do, and we are so grateful when it does happen, so thank you so much for that. SQPN also hosts all of the shows, all of the Catholics of Oz episodes on YouTube. You can subscribe there, and don't forget to hit the bell to get notifications when new episodes are released. So, Lino, let's get started with Faith Beyond Borders.
Well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a very special place, eh? Oh. Spiritually, ecumenically.
How do you make somebody love you without affecting free will?
Welcome to my world, son. You come up with an answer to that one, you let me know.
Yes, I had to work very hard to pass Latin and theology.
Oh, quite. Those are, of course, the most important things.
Oh, yeah.
I'd sit this one out, Cap.
I don't see how I can.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
So, Lino, I've been going through the plenary council for the 3-4 episodes now, just going through the decrees. And
yes, you have, yeah.
Yeah, and it may seem like an onerous thing maybe to listen to or to talk about. It has taken quite a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of reading to do this. Probably more effort than I've had to put in for the podcast in a while. Not that I don't put effort in, but a bit more brain power than usual. Had to engage a few more brain cells than I normally might. However, I think it's worthwhile having the conversation about the plenary council, firstly in Australia, because this is the future direction of the Australian church for the next 70 to 100 years at least, maybe even longer than that. So it's really important that we have a look at, well, what is the Australian church discerning as its future direction? The question that underpins this whole process that started just over 5 years ago now was, how can the church reveal the face of Christ to Australia? Now, I'm paraphrasing the question very poorly, but that's essentially it. How can the church look more Christ-like? We are a Christ-centered community of faith whose witness to the world, witness to Australia, witness to Dufton in our local community, we know what I mean, but our witness, locally and internationally. How can the Australian church be part of the church's mission here in Australia, but also for the world as well? So you need to reconfigure. The last plenary council was in the 1930s. So what they discerned was important for the church at that time. It was a pivotal moment for the church at that time. But what they discerned is not the context that we're in now. The world has changed so much since the 1930s. So discerning for now with today's problems, today's issues, today's where people's hearts are at is really important. So I think it's been important just to keep the conversation about the plenary council going. It's not a thing where it's happened now, let it go, let's move on to the next project. The plenary council and its outcomes is the faith project for the next few decades and beyond, for however long till we need another plenary council. So today, what I wanted to do was actually wrap up the conversation. So I wanted to focus a little bit more heavily on the 8th decree, and then just combine the 7th, 9th, and 10th one together because they're important, but also a bit administrative, but in my interpretation anyway. I don't want to belittle the importance of the 7th decree. It's still a very important one. However, I'd like to just lean a little bit more to the 8th one. So the 8th decree is called Integral Ecology and Conversion for the Sake of Our Common Home. So before it gets dismissed as, this is just one on the environment. The church is just going to say, buy solar panels for your parish and look, and hug a tree.
Okay.
That would not be a fair reading of what's going on here. So I think it's important before I even look at the document, which is, it's not too long, so it won't take us long to get through it. I think it's important to say that a theology of creation is foundational to our faith. I'll say that again. A theology of creation is foundational to our faith, and that is having an understanding of God's actions from the beginning that have led to you being here now. When I say you, I mean all of us. All right, led to the you, the person you see in the mirror. All right, is here because of God's actions through creation, of creating and of continuing creation, of maintaining creation and being one with what God has created. So it's important for us because we use creation in our prayer. We use creation in our liturgy. We use creation in our understanding of God. You can't understand God if you don't understand that God is a creative action as well as everything else. And not just that God created the planet that we live on, which is very important, but God created everything that exists. And this is fundamental to our faith as well. So I'm going to make the case for that today by saying a couple of things about this document and adding a few thoughts. This is actually a topic I'm quite passionate about. Again, not because we need to all buy solar panels. I've actually got solar panels on my house, but
we haven't yet.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm not going to guilt you into getting them, or not because you need to buy electric cars or start eating grass or anything like that. I don't know why I just said that. Chlorophyll. Yeah, it's good for your skin. No, but it's a lot more fundamental to our faith than that. So first of all, the bishops start by talking about this. As drought, bushfires, floods, and extreme weather become more common in Australia, we realise the urgency of responding to our baptismal calling of taking up God's mission of love for the whole of creation. our baptismal calling of following God's mission for the love of the whole of creation. So that's how it starts. So notice that our love of creation, of what God has created for us, is linked to our baptism. It's part of our mission. So our mission, we've talked about missionary discipleship in previous episodes, and our mission to spread the good news and to all the faith and the works that we do, as followers of God. The love of creation and the actions that come from that love of creation are part of our baptismal calling. So it's not enough just to say we've got to look after the earth because that's a good thing to do. It's actually fundamental to our faith, because it is looking after what God has created, what God loves. God loves what God has created, right? So we need to love what God loves. so it's part of our baptismal calling. So through Genesis, we see there's in fact, I'm just going to use a different reference for this. In Genesis, we see this idea that God created and He called it good, and I think it's important to understand what is meant by "and God saw that it was good." So you'll see in the first Genesis creation story, there are two. For those who didn't know, there are actually two creation stories in Genesis chapter 1. And then I think it's Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, where the second creation story starts. Look it up. Tell me if I'm wrong. All right. But I bet you I'm not. All right. And there's a whole reason for that too. However, in the first creation story, it says, on the first day, God created this and God saw that it was good. And on the second day, He created this and God saw that it was good. And then He created human beings and He saw that they were very good. All right. So we see this narrative that's going on here, right? It's quite poetic and quite beautiful. Here's the key thing, right? The Hebrew word for good, so the word good, which has been translated from a Hebrew word into English for us to understand, the Hebrew word is tov, T-O-V, right? That's the word that's the original intention of the authors of Genesis. And tov in Hebrew gives the sense of a phrase like, this will fulfill what it's been created to do, fulfill its function. So it's good as in it is able to do what it's being created to do, right? So in the order of all created things, this thing will be able to do what it's being created to do. So that's a good thing, right? So essentially, if you want to put a theology on it, this thing will be able to do its God-given purpose. So the sun will shine because it's been created by God and it fits within all of God's creation. And the plants will grow and fulfill their function as plants within God's creation. So everything God has established. So creation is established, and then we get to the sixth day, which is the creation of humanity, and we read that God called it very good. Now the Hebrew for this is tov miod. Okay, so the tov, T-O-V, and miod, M-E-O-D. And the connotation, the meaning, the expression of this is the best of the very best of something that will be able to fulfill its function, to fulfill what it's God's given purpose. If anything that's been created is the most capable of fulfilling its God-given purpose, it's human beings. They are tov miod. They are the best of the very best. So, and we see that, and we see that the structure of that story, the first day, this, second day, this, human beings are on the sixth day. That is the pinnacle of creation. They're at the top of creation. So this is really important, right? So human beings are placed into the natural world because they are part of the natural world. We are part of the natural world. We have cells, just like everything living has cells. We have, the atoms that, have been ejected by stars and, everything's had from creation. We are actually part of this world. And so this is known as an integral ecology. So Pope Francis talks about this in Laudato Si, which I think everyone should read. So this integral ecology says that we are linked to all of creation, just as God is a loving God who shows this interrelation of the three persons of God, the Trinity, of love, for them, and that love flows out into creation. We are called to replicate that love for creation that God has as well. So creation, everything that's been made, can't be separated from God. It is part of what God has created and therefore loves. and therefore we love as well. So that's why I say it's, fundamental, foundational to our understanding of our faith as well. So, so Pope Francis in Laudato Si had said where is it? So I lost my spot. There we are. Okay, that through God, there's this fertile connection between care for our earthly home and the Trinitarian life of God. So God created the world according to a divine model, and that divine model is a web of relationships. Everything in nature is interrelated, as you know, and we are part of that relationship. We are actually a really important part of nature, part of our, the planetary ecosystem and everything. And in fact, we're also related to wider creation as well, everything beyond Earth. So that's the important thing then is if we have this connection to the planet and all of creation because God loves what God has created, then we have a responsibility for it as well. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church calls this stewardship. So a steward. So if you think of like, say, Lord of the Rings, right? So this is my example here, right? So think of Return of the King, Gondor, right? Which is the city that's opposite Mordor. Remember that?
Yes.
And it has a steward. It hasn't got a king. It has a steward until Aragorn returns as the king, right? Which is his rightful place. Yep. Shout out Lord of the Rings. Love you, by the way. So moving on. So the steward of Gondor, he is looking after the kingdom of Gondor and all of its surrounding cities until the king returns, right? Well, that's our stewardship. We are given responsibility, as Genesis says, to keep and till the earth and to look after it, but it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God. So we are looking after and cultivating what God loves. And the Catechism goes on to say that we are co-creators with God. So God started the act of creation. God maintains creation, and we continue creation through our actions as well. So we can,
it makes sense.
So by our baptism, we love what God creates, and we enhance, for the sake of all people's living and their needs, and for the beauty of creation as well. The beauty is also fundamental to our faith. We continue it through what we create out of nature as well, which is why we have a responsibility to look after it and not to destroy it. So to use it sustainably for the, and so on. And the other thing is when we look after creation, it's also for the sake of all human beings too. So if you see, for example, that human beings cause an environmental disaster, which leads to a lack of drinking water somewhere for a group of people, or if, or if land is destroyed where people live, or whatever else by human actions, that is anti-creation. That is that is working against God's creation. Whereas we enhance God's creation, one for the benefit of other human beings, but also because creation is beautiful. It is a sign of God. It is a sign and a symbol of God's presence with us. This is what God created for us to live in out of love. So there's that too. The last thing I'll say is that I said before that creation is part of our prayer and our ritual. So let's go to the liturgy, right? Blessed are you, Lord God of all creation. Through your goodness, we have this wine to offer. We have this bread to offer, right? Through your goodness, through your creation, we have these gifts to offer. Where do these gifts come from? They come from the earth. We are offering God's creation back in love. Now, I'm going to see if I can quote this correctly because I'm doing it from my head, and people can Google this as well. But the Catechism, in talking about the purpose of our life, says our purpose is to know, love, and serve God, and offer the gifts of creation back to God in thanksgiving. So God has given us the means to show our, to offer back in thanksgiving, and that is nature. We offer the bread and the wine, which represents the work of our hands, the work we're doing for God through our baptism. And God takes our gift and it becomes the body and blood of Christ. So God uses nature, the body and blood of Christ through the bread and wine, and gives it back to us in relationship. Integral ecology, everything is related. Everything is interconnected by the Trinitarian love of God. The Trinity is love, God is love, as John says, and that love is shared with us in so many ways through creation. And what is our baptismal calling? Love God, love what God created, and do what God asks us to do then naturally because of it. If God created it, we need to look after it. So So there's your integral ecology. there's a lot more we can say about it, but it's such an important thing for us to remember. And it's devastating if we cut this integral ecology out of our faith. If we let it be, shrouded or diminished by, political squabbles or by ideological squabbles. And I'm not taking aim at any particular group, because there are groups that overemphasize the earth, and there are groups who underemphasize the earth as well. So we need a moderate, balanced, tempered approach to our love of creation, and our baptism is the lens that we can look at creation through. God loves us. Creation is a sign of God's love. We're co-creators with God in looking after creation. ... All right. So and I think the bishops capture this quite beautifully. I should say, I think the plenary council delegates capture this quite beautifully in their in this document here. So they talk about the ecological conversion, which is everything I've just spoken about: awareness of creation through our baptism. Ecological conversion is both personal and communal, and therefore we must act to care for creation in ways that are both personal and communal. Such action will be informed by Scripture, our theological tradition, Catholic social teaching, human knowledge, and scientific insight. In responding to these issues, we acknowledge the unique place and wisdom of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And you can see that there's in this document, there's a whole lot of things here about it then. So what the Plenary Council then calls for is for the church in Australia, parishes, schools, every church organisation to follow what's called the Laudato Si Action Plan. So my school has signed up to this. We still have a lot of work to do, because it's actually I'd say a lifelong process, to be honest. But the Laudato Si Action Plan is about our love of creation through our baptism, and therefore we do something about it. Now, that might include, I jokingly said it before, but it could include the installation of solar panels. All right, that's good for the earth. You know what I mean? Like the more we can rely on renewable energy, the less we need to dig things out of the ground and destroy certain places of the environment.
Is that where climate change is sort of
so climate change? Is an issue.
But what I was thinking is like, when was this plenary council done? We were talking about this back in the, what was it, Lindsay, 30s or 40s? What is this talking about? This whole plenary council was talked about.
So the plenary council, the current one, the process started 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah,
but the church has, Pope Francis wrote Laudato Si over a decade ago now. Oh, don't quote me if I'm wrong about that. Yeah, or close to a decade now, at least.
And I guess,
the thing is, he's not the first one to talk about the environment. I can remember at World Youth Day in 2008 when Pope Benedict was talking one of his sermons about looking after the earth as well.
I feel like looking after the earth.
Yeah, there's a tradition of caring for the earth. Now
Definitely.
Science tells us some of the issues that we have. The human contribution to climate change. Again, we don't want to be fanatic about climate change. So some people go overboard about it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, we do need to be aware of our responsibility to make sure that climate change doesn't get out of control.
Exactly.
And I don't want to be a doomsday person or whatever. But the thing is, we may not see the effects of climate change now, the human contribution to it. But if we have care for creation, if we have care for human beings, especially future human beings, like, say, our children and children's children, so on, we do need to make sure that what we leave for them is a sustainable earth.
Exactly.
Just like previous generations have left for us.
Yep.
We need to make sure we hand on an earth, and a universe eventually, but an earth
that's true.
That they can live on, not one that is that we've destroyed. I would say it's, in a way, there's a kind of sin here in misusing creation, especially in a way that affects the lives of other people. We think about that too. Yeah,
understand. Yep.
Anything else you want to add? Because I've thrown a whole lot of comments about this, but anything else you want to add about? No. Yeah,
that came up pretty quickly about climate change and how we have to look after the earth and everything, and we've been talking about this for how many years, and I think that's what the cry out from the public to our politicians. I'm not going to get political or anything about that.
Yeah.
But people are trying to tell them, if you don't do anything at now, this is going to happen. You need to get this done and everything. And of course, and in some countries and some other places, it just fell on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And now we need more. I think there's leadership happening and there's things happening around that. And our church has been talking about it for ages. I mean, action needs to be happened.
Our Pacific Islands neighbours, to Australia, all these island nations are saying, please make sure that you are, doing something about climate change, so that because if sea levels rise, they're in trouble.
Oh yes, they're in very big trouble.
Caritas Australia talks about climate refugees, and these are people whose homes are destroyed because of climate related events. So. There is potential if sea levels were to rise, that there would be people that have no homes. Our Pacific Island neighbours, for one, their homes would start to disappear as they went underwater. I mean, that would be a disaster, and that again would be not looking after God's creation. That would especially if it was human action that resulted in them losing their homes. So this is why we see, for example, pushes for renewable energy, less use of, say, for example, coal-powered electricity and so on. Now, before people jump on me and say you're a greenie or whatever else, calm down. First of all, but here's what I'll say, right? Here's what I'll say. I'm not for shutting down every single source of power generation before anyone goes crazy, right? What I am for is sustainable uses of creating energy which don't affect or destroy the lives of other people. Because if I have the right to turn on a light switch and have lights in my house, other people have that right too. They have a right to a home, and a right to a safe place to live in that they can warm, heat, light, have running water to. So they also have a right to be looked after by creation, just like the rest of us.
Or everyone. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And I think that's, that's just the catechism will back me up on that too, in terms of looking after creation for the sake of looking after other people. Google it. Anyway, so here's what the Australian Church has talked about as actions to follow up. So there's one article and it says the following, that witnessing to their communal and ecological conversion and the urgent need for action by 2024, emphasis there, each Catholic parish, diocese, eparchy, educational institution or organizations commits to joining the Laudato Si platform, and by 2030 either develops its own or participates in an established Laudato Si action plan, which includes the following elements: a public commitment, a governance model, processes and procedures, a mechanism for listening to the ecological wisdom of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, developed in partner with Aboriginal Catholic Ministry and Diocesan Justice, Ecology and peace bodies where they exist. So, for example, we've got Catholic Earth Care. We've got Aboriginal Catholic Ministry, all these great organisations that exist. Regular reporting on progress towards and accountability for defined goals and objectives, and co-construction of those goals and objectives where the people they are meant to support and serve. So basically, the church is saying, let's take action on this together. Now, until it will be ratified. I mean, all of this will be ratified at some point by the Vatican, and once it is, we'll probably hear more from our bishops in our dioceses about what will happen, because it could be, for example, let's look at Victoria, right? So we've spoken about take the way of the gospel before, and within that, we're talking about setting up missions of parishes. So you'll have, maybe 4 or 5 parishes linked together in a mission. So the question will be, and again, I'm not doing this to raise doubts, because these are just questions that will be answered, at some point in time, right? So the question will be, is in the Archdiocese of Melbourne, will these mission parishes need to set up their own Laudato Si action plan when they sign up? Or will there be a archdiocesan-wide Laudato Si action plan where the Archdiocese will say, all parishes need to do this, 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 and this. So anyway, but we'll see. I'm not worried about that either way. I think both are workable. The only thing is, it requires commitment. This is the big thing, right? Following the Laudato Si action plan needs commitment. The commitment of our baptism to love creation and do what's right. as a result of that. Yeah. Right. So there we go. That's that decree. Any thoughts you want to add before we finish up with that one and move on to the last three?
No. I hope it all works out. Everyone works together to look after each other, and especially looking after the earth. If we don't look after the, it's just, I don't know. Is it common sense? Maybe
totally common sense.
Look after the earth. Yeah. Look after the earth, and the earth will look after us.
Yeah.
It is God's creation. God made the earth for us to live on, and God gave us a responsibility to look after the earth. And if we don't, well, we'll be in trouble. And and I'm maybe thinking, I'm making a big pun here, Lindsay. I'm thinking out of the box, like as in space exploration.
Yeah.
It means if we do colonize other planets, they are God's creation, and
correct.
It's still our responsibility to look after.
Yes.
Be it the moon, as we'll talk about soon enough, the moon, all of it. If we have responsibility to look after that, because that's God's creation. And if we look after that planet, or where will we go in 1,000 years, 100 years? It's our responsibility to look after that, and they will look after us. That's what I'm just thinking.
I think I mentioned a few episodes ago, we talked about the James Webb Space Telescope, remember? And I was saying I looked at the images and I thought all I could think was, and God saw that it was good.
Exactly.
Tov. There we are, Tov,
Yep.
Yeah. So fit within God's divine plan of, the beauty of all creation. So yes, it is important for us to, as part of our baptism, it's not the only thing for us to work on, but our baptism has a holistic sense of what is God's will for our lives and for all of creation, and looking after the earth is part of that. So look, again, I'm approaching this from a theological perspective. I'm not linking myself to any, radical, approaches on either side of the political spectrum, because I feel like they don't help the conversation at all. What does help the conversation is a love for what God created, and remembering that we are part of an integral ecology. We are connected to everything, and that includes what God has created and God as well. All of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's a fear of some people. That's what we've been hearing and talking to other people. Go, I don't want us to colonize other planets and everything. I go, well, we are looking after our Earth, and we need to look after our Earth, and we must.
Yeah.
I'll try to sound like a politician here. Anyway, look, we must look after our Earth, and that's our main role at the moment. Yeah, and it will never end.
Yes. I
just hope and pray it doesn't ever end, even though we do go and explore and colonize and live in other planets. But we look after our own planet, but we look after everything that God has created. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, no, good one. All right, I'll just quickly wrap up this discussion of the Plenary Council by going through 3 documents. Now, it won't take as long as, when I say 3 documents, it sounds like it's here forever. It actually won't take as long as it is. So very quickly, I'm actually going to go, so I just spoke about the 8th decree on integral ecology. Now I'm going to go to the 7th one, just take a step backwards. I think the 7th, 9th, and 10th are kind of related in a sense. But the 7th one is called At the Service of Communion, Participation, and Mission. And it's on the issue of governance. That is the leadership of the church at the highest levels of each diocese. So, and governance in all areas as well. So essentially, they're talking about the governance of the church should be influenced by this notion of synodality. Again, synodality, taking the way together, following God together. So it says, in baptism, the Holy Spirit gives believers, and therefore the whole church, a special gift so that together they can faithfully interpret and live the Christian gospel in the diverse circumstances of history and culture. So the Spirit enables ongoing discernment of the signs of the times in the light of the gospel. All baptized participate in the 3 offices of Christ as priestly, prophetic, and royal people. So basically, what's being said here is that we need to ensure that we have a synodal way of doing church into the future. Pope Francis called for it. We have a synod on synodality that's in the process of unfolding and happening soon enough. And it says here, the practice of synodality requires greater transparency in decision making and the overcoming of a culture of clericalism that promotes privilege and enables the abuse of power. So clericalism is kind of the idea that that all of the power of the church belongs to ordained people. priests and bishops and whatever, in the sense that, I should say that they're a source of power, right? But actually the source of power is God, and all of us are at God's service. That's also to say, though, not to diminish the role of priests or diminish the role of the Pope or anything like that, like they're just common people that, by their baptism and, by their sacramental ordination, they have a special role within the church that needs to be cherished and treasured and loved. But at the same time, not to say that, not to treat the Pope or a priest like they're God themselves, if that kind of makes sense. Right? Yeah. All right. Because that kind of power for anyone, lay people as well, can actually be quite dangerous. And we can see, and let's look in Australia, that kind of power led to the cover up of child sexual abuse in the church in Australia. I'm only speaking for Australia. All right. But that's what power did. So synodality means that there's more transparency. Synodality means that there is more working together, co-responsibility, that we are working in partnership with our priests, with our religious, with our Pope and our bishops and so on. And let's talk about this. Archbishop Comensoli has been on this show before. That to me is synodality, that he's not a king on a throne. He moves amongst the people. He moves amongst his flock. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And we sit with our own parish. We've been blessed with some great parish priests over the last few years. From our older Father Michael to our younger Father Michael to our current Father John. Again, people, they move amongst the people. They make decisions because they have to. That's fine. Anyone in leadership like they are has to make decisions. But the thing is, from what I've seen from all of their processes, their decisions is about the faith of the people. It's their sacramental stance on, from their ordination, on their sense of God as well. And I think discerning that together, lay people as priest, prophet, and royal people, as well as, working with our clergy and so on, this is the way forward, is synodality, doing it together. So there's that point there. And as Vatican II Pope Francis have emphasized, the practice of synodality is integral to the Church's discernment of what the gospel demands in particular circumstances and to what pastoral action is required to serve for the good of all. So the Church made a number of decrees and articles about that, but some of it involves reviewing and seeing how this process unfolds. But a commitment to synodality throughout all levels of the Church. That's hard to do because people are different and everyone's got different opinions, and people are influenced by things that are outside of the Church as well, and that can make things very, very challenging. However, this is a commitment that we have to make, again, through our baptism, all right, to follow the way of synodality, which is to follow the way of God, really, okay, living up to our baptism. So I'll just whip through these last two very quickly. The 9th decree is about the implementation of of all of the things that we've gone through over the last few episodes about the plenary council. So ensuring it's effective, accountable during the implementation phase, and the implementation phase, they say, will take place over a period of 5 years. So once the Vatican gives the seal of approval and ticks off all of the decrees that we've spoken about, over a period of 5 years, we'll see the implementation of it happening. And there'll be reports and processes to map and gauge the implementation as well. And there'll be an interim report in 2023 and 2025 to see how the implementation is going. And there'll be a final review in 2027 to speak about how the implementation has gone. So there's a commitment to that. And then the 10th decree is simply to say that all the decrees from the 4th plenary council from the 1930s has now been superseded by the decrees of the current plenary council of 2022. I hope I got that right. Numbers. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Maybe a Patreon update.
It's like a Patreon update. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's like a revised version, and seeing where we can have bring the Church a bit closer in all the plans and everything. Yep, understand that.
So true. Yep. And it is about Pope John the 23rd in the Second Vatican Council, when he called it, said we need to read the signs of the times. And the decrees of the 1930s were good for the context in which, we spoke of this before, were good for that context, not so good for this context. There was a thing. Now I know it was taken out of context, but there was this thing about priests can't go to the movies. I know I'm actually oversimplifying it. It was not as bad as yeah. All right, I mean, but the intention of whatever that original decree was has no bearing or sense in what in today's context, right? Yeah, and that's an extreme example, but we take the faith of our fathers, right? The previous Australian church leaders of that time. And in gratitude, they've led and stewarded the church, and, they've done well, they've failed like everyone does, but they've led the church through a particular era. Now it's time for this generation of leaders and this generation of lay people to lead the church through the next stage of the joys and difficulties of life in Australia as well. Boom. That was my political speech. How was that? Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank my mum and Elvis for for the inspiration. Thank you very much.
Sort of soapbox again.
So, yeah, no soapboxes. Yeah, I'll put it away now. Yeah. Yeah. Lino, any final thoughts about the plenary council before we officially wrap up this topic and leave it to the next generation of Catholics of Oz podcasters to take it on 20 years from now?
20 years from now. I believe it's going to do work well. Everyone's going to, everyone works together and through everything that goes through with it, I think it will do well. And of course, I think we talked about it before. I like to see the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community be involved in this as well. It's great to see that too.
Yes.
I'm not sure if was that integrated into the 1930s. No, I don't know. I don't want to go there.
I haven't done enough homework on it to know, to be honest.
I don't want to. Okay. Oh, good. No. I'm just saying that it's good to see.
But definitely very integrated into this one. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot more involvement of different cultures in it, and I think it'll be well. It'll be done very well. I think. Yeah. Again, I think the commitment to it through our baptism is very important. And everyone's going to have different opinions within the church, and that's fine. We're a big family. We're very broad. We're very different. We have different contexts in different parts of Australia. But the important thing is, let's remember who we follow first and follow him faithfully. That's the key thing. All right. So that's the plenary council. We could officially decree that this discussion on the plenary council is now closed. Although ongoing. But that's a wrap up of it. And we'd love to know what anyone thinks about the plenary council in Australia. Is your church doing anything around the world that's similar and going through a similar process, discussing synodality, anything like that? What's been good? What's been not so great about it? We'd love to compare experiences and hear from you. Or if you're in Australia, if you're in part of the Australian church, what has the plenary council meant to you? What do you see as great about it? What are your concerns? What are you not too sure about as well? We'd love to know. We're a community in this podcast, and and we all follow, again, the same person, and we want to hear as people of faith what your thoughts are. Okay, with that, let's talk about science.
What a fine day for science.
You have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Can you reverse the polarity?
I'll do my best.
All right, so here we are into episode 2 or 3 of us, I should say, doing Caroline's.
Yes.
Bravely venturing into this world of science, dipping our toes in.
Boldly go where no podcasters have gone before. Maybe, I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
Several have, but where we definitely don't, where we don't normally go every week ourselves. So,
that's true. Yeah. That's true.
So until Caroline returns, we're taking stewardship of this particular segment.
Yeah, definitely stewardship. Yeah.
But
bring the queen back. Bring the queen back.
Yeah. But this is a fun one. Last time we spoke about chewing, and there was a bit of work in.
Okay, that was cool. That's cool. I love that.
Digesting that information, but this time around, this is a fun one. All right, let's delve into the world of space robots. How about that? Space robots. So, firstly, an older one, Lino, and this is from space.com. And it was written in May. Meets the Astro Bees. These tiny cube-shaped robots, have arrived in space. So back in May, a Northrop Grumman Antares rocket launched, lots and lots of equipment to the International Space Station and supplies and so on. But amongst all of those supplies were 2 little robots called Astro Bees. Now these, I've got a picture of one in front of me. They are so They're so cute, to be honest. They're really cool, right? They are. They're like they're like about the size of a loaf of bread. It's a cube.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've got two. They look like eyes. They actually look like they've got eyes. It's a touch screen with 2 dots on it, and there's a camera integrated and everything. And it's just floating around in the International Space Station doing its thing. And they float around. They've got fans, and that's how they move around. But they're these little autonomous robots that can float around the International Space Station and do work, which is really cool.
Nice.
So, as it says here, they look like something out of a science fiction film.
Definitely.
If any of them speak to you and call you Dave, get out of there, all right? So just, if it says like, I'm sorry, Dave, get out, all right? Otherwise, they haven't. That's, what's it called? Now I just went blank. Space Odyssey, that one.
Space Odyssey, that's right. That's right, yeah.
All right.
I thought it was Alien, but then for some reason, that's a different one. That's a different guy.
No, Alien had the androids.
Androids.
Yes.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
Let's not talk about the horror of AI going wrong. But it's
sorry.
a different thing
No.
altogether. Yeah.
Let's talk positive with some good robots.
Follow me if you want to live. Anyway, so anyway, that aside, these little they're little cube-shaped robotic devices, and they're like free-flying machines. They are entirely functional bots that have joined the crew aboard the International Space Station. And there'll be a third one. If it's not up there already, there's a third one that's going to be joining them as well. But they are going to help the astronauts with routine everyday tasks. One of their purposes is to reduce the amount of time that astronauts need to spend on mundane tasks, like, for example, finding a lost piece of equipment. They can do it for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. We need one of them at home.
Yeah, it's like, Astro B, I left my wrench on the floor. Can you go get it for me?
My pen fell over. It's gone underneath
not my
the
pen.
table.
It's floating away. Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, floating away.
Yeah. Can you find my phone for me?
Yeah. Hey, Siri.
Yeah, that's right. I better not say that too loud, actually, because I said it
I just said now my phone off by accident.
Yeah.
No, go. All good. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. These little robots can contain multiple science payloads, and they can collect data as they float around. So they can do science while they're working as well, while they're floating around the station.
Nice.
Cool. So yes, like I said, they have a setup of different electric fans, which can help them to navigate and float around the space station. And they have sensors that will help them to detect dangers like radiation, carbon dioxide, and more as well. They have cameras built into the front to help them see as they move around the space station. And they have a perching arm, which allows them to grab handrails or grab and hold items. It is a limited capacity to grab things. However, this is just the beginning of, it's like, this is like level 1 of what these robots will be able to do later on in the future. So they can function autonomously. They can also be controlled by the astronauts, and they can also be controlled by flight controllers and researchers back on Earth as well. So they're pretty flexible in what they can do.
Oh no, I can imagine one of the guys down to Earth doing a prank on the poor astronauts up top. I can imagine all the pranks. Does pranks on them, Hey, get the robot to drop a pen on the guy's head.
Yeah.
Or something silly.
Or float it towards their head.
Yeah, right to their face.
Or to float up to them while they're sleeping and go, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sure they've done it already. Yeah.
I think you've probably done a little practical jokes for them there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they also think that once the Astro Bees become advanced enough, so future iterations, they'll actually be able to maintain spacecraft in the future. So to imagine that human beings don't always have to be on the International Space Station, or if there's a spacecraft taking supplies to Mars, the Astro Bee, that you don't necessarily need people to be on board, the Astro Bee could maintain systems and things like that. While the spaceship is flying. So the team is looking at developing further capabilities. So it says here, on future spacecraft, robots like Astrobees could someday monitor the ship for problems and maintain onboard systems, even if astronauts aren't present, as I was saying before. So in addition to transporting experiments on the space station and helping maintain the station, they'll help researchers to learn more about how astronauts and robots can work together in space. So this could inform future long-term missions, long-term space travel, where more advanced robots are helping to assist and also cohabitate with humans on these long journeys. So when looking at the new Astro Bees, it's clear that to see why researchers might be interested in how astronauts interact with them. They look like futuristic sci-fi companion robots, and they even have names. So to finish off, they have names. So the yellow one is called Honey. The blue one is called, all right. The blue one's called Bumble, and the third green one is called Queen. So there we are.
Makes sense.
We have 3 little Astro Bees floating around They remind me of, I don't know if anyone they remind me of exocomps, which are these robots from Star Trek: The Next Generation, which became part of like comedic parody on what's it called, on Lower Decks. So if you remember Peanut Hamper, so Peanut Hamper is a one of those,
Okay.
They remind me a little bit of those, Cool. So they have microphones as well, so that they can hear and so that people can talk into them and communicate as well. But they have lights to tell you when cameras and microphones are on as well, so that they know they're not being eavesdropped on or anything like that.
Okay. Oh, that's so cool.
That's the first robot, right? The second one is not so much a robot that can fly around. It's a device. It's also cube shape, about the size of a loaf of bread, and it's very cool. This one is called Moxie, and Moxie right now is creating oxygen on Mars, which is awesome.
Cool.
So
wow.
I love this one. This was actually contributed by Caroline. She shared this one with us.
Yep.
So Caroline, thank you for this, because it's such a great story. So this story is from the Smithsonian magazine, and it says, if humans are going to travel to Mars, they'll need to get oxygen from somewhere. So compared to Earth's atmosphere, which is 21% oxygen, Mars is just 0.16% oxygen. So not good enough for humans.
Definitely not.
So these lunchbox-sized instruments called Moxie, there's one of them that's actually on board NASA's Perseverance rover. We did an episode on the Perseverance rover last year when it successfully landed on Mars.
And it's still there, isn't it, Lynn?
Still there, rolling around, doing science and launching a drone and things like that. Nice. Moxie is one device that's actually attached to it, and it has been creating breathable oxygen on Mars. So it successfully produced oxygen in 7 different tests that were conducted in 2021, according to a paper that was published recently in the Journal of Science Advances. So if astronauts were to go to Mars, they'd need oxygen to breathe, but they also need oxygen to fuel rockets too. So for example, we use liquid oxygen as part of the fuel of rockets here on Earth. However, they would need 4 times the liquid oxygen to lift off from Mars's atmosphere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they do need to generate a lot of oxygen on Mars if there's to be a successful human presence, but also space program of going there, launching from there, and so on. If someone goes there, we need to have the capacity to return them as well. It shouldn't be a one-way trip.
A one-way trip, yeah.
So this instrument would produce oxygen cheaply and would be a very efficient way to do that. So Moxie, or the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, was able to produce 6 grams of oxygen per hour during the test. So that's about the rate of a small tree. Right, so a small tree's worth of oxygen per hour, which is a good start.
It's a step.
It's a good step. So it makes oxygen by compressing and heating carbon dioxide from Mars's atmosphere to about 800 degrees-ish Celsius, or 1500 degrees Fahrenheit if you use Fahrenheit as your measurement. And what that does is it causes the carbon dioxide to split into oxygen ions and carbon monoxide. Then the device recombines the oxygen ions to make breathable and combustible oxygen gas. So the byproducts from this are not harmful to the Martian atmosphere. So it's also very sustainable. So
there you go.
So it's really good. Yeah, we talked about care for creation. Yeah, so there you go. So with these experiments, Moxie has proven it can work reliably. Across a variety of tests, the device produced the total of 100 minutes worth of breathable oxygen during all those tests. So one astronaut would have 100 minutes of breathable oxygen from what has managed to happen so far. It performed predictably during day and night in different extreme temperatures and following a dust storm, so that was good. So the only thing that they need to demonstrate now is how it would run at dawn or dusk when the temperature change is substantial. So this is the next.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. So temperatures do change even with.
Mars. It can be very extreme. And so they need to see how it works in these extreme changes if they want it to be a sustainable, usable thing into the future on Mars.
Exactly.
So in order to make enough oxygen to support a mission to Mars and send people back, Moxie would need to create at least about, I think this worked out to about 3 kilograms. I'm converting pounds here. So it says 4.5 to 6.5 pounds. So that's 3 to 5 kilograms of oxygen, which would require scaling things up by several hundred times. So it needs to be 100 times. We need to work 100 times, faster, or be 100 times, not larger, but it needs to be scaled up quite significantly.
Exactly, it would be. Yeah.
So what they're doing now is working on a device that's about a cubic meter in size. So they're upscaling now to move to the next stage of testing. So the bigger device to support a human mission would need to be running continuously for 400 days on Mars.
Whoa.
So it's got to run a lot. So that's a lot of hours to put on the hardware, it says, irrespective of what the technology is.
Definitely.
And this is technology that needs to work continuously for 400 days on Mars in a different, in different conditions. So not
Conditions
on Earth
and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Wow. Okay.
So the scientists that we interviewed said that scaling up the technology shouldn't be too difficult, but they said there are challenges that do need to be managed. So, for example, a larger device's internal temperature, if it's larger, it's going to get warmer, so the temperature needs to be monitored and maintained as well. So NASA is testing the new hardware for this larger version, and it says here, the future MOXIE is the one that really counts. So the researchers say it will lay the groundwork for future space travel. And it says this is what explorers have done since time immemorial. They find out what resources are available where they're going, and then find out how to use them to continue the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
So what do you think about those robots?
Oh, it's interesting. Both of them are doing great things in space. I like it. The Astro Bees are nice and cute, and do everything.
They are very cute. They're cute little. You can hold them in your hand. They're so cute.
And it's the news about the what do you call it? Sorry,
Moxie.
Moxie.
Yeah.
Moxie and Astro Bees. Moxie sounds an awesome device to make oxygen on Mars, and it's a step. It has to take time. I'm excited. I wanted to know how it's going to go through.
Yes, yeah.
But it has to take time to see how we go. But it looks so good.
And how a larger MOXIE would function, that would be cool too. In the future,
exactly.
when they scale up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So wait, is Moxie in the rover now, Lindsay?
Moxie is in the Perseverance rover right now, making oxygen on Mars.
Okay, then.
Or has been, in several experiments. Yeah. Which is very cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool,
the other thing to mention is, just very quickly on slightly different, still space-related news. So recently, we spoke about the Artemis 1 mission and our excitement about it. And Artemis 1 is still on Earth at time of recording. Yeah. Now, as the administrator of NASA said, this is a new rocket. It's a new vehicle. So, of course, there are going to be teething problems. There's going to. I mean, if you want to see how issues with a new rocket, look at the development of Starship. There are explosions going on everywhere as they succeed. They call it failing upwards, right? So as they fail, they learn new things and they eliminate that failure and then work on the next one. So so SLS, again, the most powerful rocket in human history at the moment, is going to have a lot of failure points as it goes along. And before the show, Lino and I were talking about this, rocket launches, and new rockets, part of the journey is expecting that there's going to be a scrub. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It would be cool if they launched first time when they said they would, but scrubs are part of normal operations. That's part of the journey.
To be there. That's part of the journey. It is. If you think it's what's that saying, Lindsay? If it's too true, it probably is.
If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
It probably is.
Yeah. So the expectation of a launch the first time. Look, I kind of thought it would launch the first time, but I hadn't realized that they hadn't done full wet dress rehearsals yet, which is where they flood all the tanks. They run all the fuels through all the pipes and tanks and whatever else, and then check through instruments to see if it went well. So the full wet dress rehearsal, a couple of cracks appeared in the foam, which is normal. There's a foam casing to cool the middle tank. So a couple of cracks appeared, which wasn't too big of a deal. There was a pipe that leaked, that was leaking hydrogen, I think it was. And the third engine, there was a sensor that failed and they couldn't tell if the engine had cooled properly, because you have to cool the engines to a particular temperature. Otherwise, they will basically, they will crack, explode, break, get damaged when they are flooded with the cold fuel that's needed to ignite and make flamey things happen. Yeah. So anyway, we follow the Artemis journey with hope. and looking forward to see it. So I think the next possible launches will be towards the end of September or sometime in October. So we'll just wait and see what NASA tells us about when they have a fixed date and time. And
cool,
NASA,
cool.
I'm just saying it. I like the 10:30 p.m. I'm cool with that. Not so cool with it
for us, is it?
Well,
For
it was
Australia.
the first attempt. The second attempt, however, was 4:15 in the morning on Sunday. Not so cool with that one. Anyway, but
okay.
Either way, I don't care what time. I'm waking up to watch this thing. I want to see, as they say, let's light this candle. I want to see it go. So, yeah,
exactly,
it's history. I love watching historic things. As in historical moments, not disasters necessarily, but key moments where human beings have done something pretty cool. That advances humanity. So, there we are.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool.
All right. Well, let's move on and let's talk about entertainment.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
This is not what we came here to do.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
I have a plan. You've got a plan. I have part of a plan. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So, Lino, do you mind if I start this one off?
Definitely, mate. You're good.
I have been watching The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, which is the series on Amazon. It is, you can tell it's a very expensive series because it looks stunning.
I think, I think it's competing with the new Game of Thrones, so
Yes.
House of Dragons.
Yeah, I was reading, I read this review in a newspaper and it said the Lord of the Rings series is, so much money's been spent on it and it looks so spectacular that it makes House of the Dragon look like it was made in Minecraft.
That's not nice.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Now I haven't watched House of the Dragon. So each one to their own, right? But I watched a couple of seasons with my wife of what is it, Game of Thrones, and yeah, we struggled to watch it. The acting was great, the characters are good, the story's compelling, great fantasy looking series. However, there were just things that and people will know what I'm talking about. There were just things that we weren't comfortable watching. It's like, I have to watch this in order to get to that, and there's just some disturbing stuff that it's like, all right, you know what?
Okay.
Someone's going to watch it, but it's just not going to be us. Yeah,
We watched the whole thing, but
you've gone through the whole thing, yeah.
But look, I totally understand. I totally understand.
Yeah. And again, each one to their own. People can make their own judgments about whether it's worth watching. So I haven't really watched House of the Dragon, just because I'm guessing it's going to be fairly similar.
Almost the same.
Yeah. So I thought, I want something a bit more uplifting and positive and things like that. And look, thankfully, the Rings of Power, I think, has been quite positive in what it's doing. So let me plug very, very quickly that SQPN has a brand new show called The Secrets of Middle-earth. Now, it's not brand new by the time people listen to this. It'll be about, they probably would have discussed the first 4 to 5 episodes by the time this episode comes out. However, what I love is that with the Secrets of Middle-earth podcast, which is led by Dom and some really great panelists, they're all fans. They've all read The Lord of the Rings a heck of a lot more times than I have. They've gone through the Silmarillion, and they've got. They know the lore of lore LORE of Lord of the Rings really well. And I've been learning a lot from listening to them because they have hopes based on what they've listened to, and they've been talking about. The thing is, what I love is because there's been a lot of commentary about the show that's been really unhelpful and, quite frankly, dishonest and disappointing online. It just nonsense
about the show itself.
Yeah, from people who call themselves true fans, right? But you're not a true fan.
True fan.
Look, let's sorry about this. You're not a true fan if you prejudge it. All right, if you prejudge it and say it's going to be terrible, I'm sorry, but that's not what a true fan does.
Okay, then I thought that they've watched it.
No, these are people who didn't watch it, and have said, it's going to be rubbish. And you're not a true fan if you write a review because you want to hate it. So you write a negative review because you want to hate it. That's not true fandom, right?
That's not a true fan.
That stuff hurts fandom. It hurts fandom.
I'm sorry. I'm going to say it, but those are trolls. I don't know what it even is, but
or Urukai. I don't know. They're one of the yeah, or
Definitely
Balrogs. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Balrogs.
A negative person that brings in.
Yeah.
No.
So look, people, please. I mean, open mind when you're watching it. Now, there are people who don't like it for legitimate reasons, right? And I've those criticisms are good. But what I like about Secrets of Middle-earth is that they've talked about the things that they like, the concerns that they have, and it's objective and balanced all the way through. So what I'm getting at is, if you'd like an objective, balanced podcast on Lord of the Rings, Secrets of, Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power, the Secrets of Middle-earth podcast is a great companion podcast to listen to as you watch each episode. So, because what I like is that they notice things that are references that I don't always understand. So I've understood.
Yeah.
There are references that I've understood just from some of my knowledge of the extended Beyond the Lord of the Rings, story. Although again, I haven't really read. I've just sort of researched a little bit because I thought it was cool, to find out a bit more. So it's really good. I like the links that the series is setting up. I like that the panel on Secrets of Middle-earth are saying, oh yeah, this is probably going to lead to this. This is what they're getting at. So I like their analysis, and they've talked about things that they like. They've talked about the departures from the lore of the story that the writers might have taken, taking things in different directions, which are interesting or sometimes concerning. But the thing is, they haven't gone ahead and said, this series is dumb. It's rubbish. They've done it. I'm really enjoying the commentary. So thank you to Dom and the panel for giving me a place of refuge from all the crazy commentary that's out there about this series, where I can just enjoy Lord of the Rings fans, just sharing their passion for Lord of the Rings and applying that passion to this show. For me, I'm actually really enjoying the show.
Okay.
I love the characters. I love the story. I love the look of it. And just as a fantasy show itself, now maybe if it takes departures from some of Tolkien's, what he set up as some of the lore and the history, all right, that's fair enough. But just as a fantasy series, I'm enjoying it a lot. I think it's really good. I like the character. I like where they're going with it. I've seen 3 episodes now, and I love I love the pointing to things that we know from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings as well. Yeah,
that makes sense.
It's clearly pointing to, at some point, the creation of the rings. It's clearly pointing to the secret activities of Sauron and the future establishment of Mordor and things like that. Or should I say Mordor, as they talk. The links to there are links to Gondor, which doesn't exist at this time, but there are links to its foundation. Gondor is the city. Remember we just talked before about Return of the King and the Steward of Gondor and all that. Yeah, this is Gondor features more prominently in Return of the King in the third book or third film. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and what I'm really loving as well is I texted you about this. I've been listening to Andy Serkis's reading of Lord of the Rings, just in 10-minute spots here and there. And the first book is 20 hours of reading on its own. So, and some of the chapters are about an hour, worth of reading. But I'm loving listening to that and watching the series at the same time, because these little links pop up here and there, and the series for me is actually enhancing my love and my understanding of the Lord of the Rings text as well. So I'm having a good little Lord of the Rings, going on an adventure.
No. Lord of the Rings is awesome.
It is. It's so so powerful. Yeah.
I did read somewhere and comment about when a journalist said about Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. You can thank Tolkien for the fantasy world itself,
the genre,
the genre and the creation of it, because of course he was the one who created the word Hobbit, and that was able to go into the dictionary.
Yes.
I forget all the other ones like OMG and LOL and all that stuff going into our dictionary for some of
the things that get in the dictionary today. Yeah. Yes.
I know.
Ruffle. I don't know. Yeah.
And that word Hobbit came in, and he was the one who created all those sort of fantasy creatures like the dragon and the goblins, goblins and orcs and everything.
I think some of them existed, but he added more to it. So there were earlier literature that had them, but not these fully established stories.
Exactly.
Like we have in Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
exactly. It was like I think it was like fairy tales and stuff that were in them.
Yeah,
and Tolkien just sort of enhanced it like 100 times. In the sense, he explained it. What happened.
and the thing is, right, with all of this, because Lord of the Rings has such an established history, and what I mean by that is Tolkien built a world. He built not like say the MCU, right, where the MCU is like this. It's a world. Yeah. It's a universe of its own, and things happen within it. But Tolkien established a history of before, of things that happened before the Lord of the Rings, and what I love is that because of that, the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit are so deep. They've got so much depth and links to things that happened before those stories happened that I never get bored of watching The Lord of the Rings or reading The Lord of the Rings or listening to The Lord of the Rings. I never find it boring at all. I just love reliving moments in the text.
Definitely.
It's like, oh yeah, that was such a great moment. It's like, oh wow, wow. It's so profound. This second time or third time that I've heard it or listened to it or read it. But yeah, it's such a powerful story, and you can just take your time going through these 3 books, The Lord of the Rings, and plus The Hobbit as well. You can just take your time going through them, enjoying them, and I think I just think there's so much depth that it's never a wasted moment to go back to Lord of the Rings ever.
Yeah, no,
and I say that for the films as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe the 4-hour versions of each film. But what
is it called?
Extended editions. Yeah.
Extended edition. Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably got that one now.
Yeah. I watched the extended edition with you the first time. You bought the DVD. I was like, remember we opened the boxes like, I don't know, 50 discs in there. I'm just exaggerating, but like there were so many DVDs in there just so you could get through.
DVDs. That's right. Back in the days when it's DVDs. Not
you get to a certain point and it goes, insert disc 2 to continue watching, Yeah.
And we look at a time and go, oh my gosh, it's an hour gone right?
Yeah, it's like, wow.
For one disc.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, but I like it. And with I think Peter Jackson did a good job of paying attention, and his writers of paying attention to The Lord of the Rings and doing the best they could to integrate it into a film. Because this could be a 10-film story, really.
Oh,
if
it can be. Yeah. It can be.
The Hobbit, not so much. The films... Yeah, I like the first film a lot. I do enjoy the first Hobbit film. But yeah, I think 3 films was a bit of a mistake, and I think they kind of drifted away.
It was still
with
part
a couple
of the story,
things.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was still part of the story.
Yeah. All of the films relate to whatever was going on in the text, but they take a lot of liberties. Like Legolas. I don't know if he needed to be there, but yeah. But either way. Go back to Lord of the Rings. Our love of it, and the Rings of Power. I think the Rings of Power is a great series. Again, I love the characters, the acting, the look. I love the fantasy story elements of it, and I'm hooked on it now. And I just want to keep watching more and more and more.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Lino, over to you. Tell us, you had a pick as well.
Yeah, we watched a series called The Terminal List. So
with Star-Lord.
Star-Lord, Chris Pratt.
Sorry, go on.
Who is this, right?
Yeah.
Well, yes, that's right, it's Star-Lord.
Can't help
Don't
it,
know
sorry.
who Star-Lord is? Yeah.
Come on, I'm Star-Lord. Who?
I'm Star-Lord. Who? It's so different. I don't know if I've talked about this to you guys or whoever in our podcast and everywhere, but I like seeing actors in different roles instead of them being themselves in a sense. We see Adam Sandler being Adam Sandler. He acts as him.
Yeah.
Wait,
Adam Sandler?
Adam Sandler. No, as in... No,
I get
serious.
Click yes, come back. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, full disclosure. I had to quickly look at my phone and I drifted off. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Please continue. I get the point you're making now. Sorry, keep going.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, man, my kid's doing it in class now. I just got caught doing it. All right, go on. Yeah, I get what you mean. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So you're watching a comedian.
Yes.
Always been a comedian.
Yeah, typecast. That's right. Yeah.
Almost his career. Yeah, he's typecast. But seeing Chris Pratt as this sort of character, it's different. He's really must be really serious. Of course, as a book. The character is serious.
Yeah.
And it was a good show. Once again, it's only for adults. So I'm going to try to find something for more family.
Not a family friendly. Yeah. Fair enough.
Definitely not. And apparently this is a show based on 3 books by Jack Carr. So if you want to see his books, there's 3 of them. So there'll be 2 other seasons.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Pratt's a producer on these, so he'll want to do it. But it's a really different side of Chris Pratt. Because I haven't seen Parks and Recreation, which I've heard is a good series.
Yeah, it's more comedic for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And another one we just started watching will be the last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So we've been watching that. Yeah. So that's a good show. Catching up on Lower Decks, Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh yeah, of course.
Absolutely, I've totally missed it. Absolutely awesome.
So funny,
especially this episode 2. And
let's talk about that moment that you were saying before. Go on.
I was
so
thinking,
funny. Yes,
I had to look at Bernadette, who was beside me. I go, hey babe. They'll play Dungeons and Dragons, but Klingon.
That's right. Klingon Dungeons,
Dungeons and Dragons.
Because now let's talk about this. So recently, we've been to your house. My family's been to your house twice, and we've been playing Hero Quest, which we talked about. I think we talked about last episode, Hero Quest. So so it's all rolling dice and seeing what happens, and if you get to move forward or backwards, and and Damien and I have been playing Descent, which is like a more advanced Hero Quest type game as well with a storyline and everything.
It was very complicated at times.
Now with Descent, you need. Actually, I don't recommend a phone. It's too small. But like a computer, or something.
A tablet.
You need an app basically, which can. So you can play it where a person is the dungeon master, or you can have an app act as the dungeon master, like General Martok in a way. Although not as advanced. But,
I would love to have something like that.
But you have an app that tells you what's happening and who you're fighting and how to conduct fights and what happens next if you take a particular action. So so I loved the General Martok app. Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it when it was with Lindsay with the rolling dice and the dice numbers will highlight and it'll interact with what the software is.
That's right.
Is that the technology we're going to be looking at when we play games? I'll be going, wow.
I love that they still have DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you know how we get board games and the board games have expansion packs, and here we are. This has got so good.
At the end, sorry, we can't spoil it too much, but when that part came in, I just packed myself laughing.
I lost it too. It was very funny.
So true, and they're still doing that marketing spin.
They make this great game, and if you want to play more, buy the expansion pack. Get the DLC.
It was so good.
Very funny.
Keeping up with Lower Decks. So,
yes.
I think it's does it come every week, Lindsay?
Every week, once a week, yes.
Okay,
weekly release.
Cool.
Yeah. So I saw episode 3, but it's too soon to talk about it because of spoilers. But
okay. So
but entertaining anyway.
We're just watching it very much. Love Lower Decks.
Yes,
love it.
episod 2, the Klingon, the General Martok, Dungeons and Dragons was very funny. So funny.
So good.
Yeah. Yes.
At the start, of course, I was like, wait a minute. At the start, of course, my bad. At the start, it was just the screen of him, and I went, "Oh no, the Klingons are coming!" And also, as it pans out, it's on a not a laptop, but on the tablet. And I went, "Wait a minute, this looks familiar." Pads, yeah. Here we go, and it gets Klingon Dungeons and Dragons season. It was so good. But the whole episode was so good to watch too. Very good.
Now, we'll point out, and I think Secrets of Star Trek, another great podcast on SQPN, they'll probably cover it. However, Star Trek recently released a bunch of teasers and trailers and updates on upcoming shows and things like that. So you can, if you just go on YouTube and Google Star Trek or upcoming Star Trek, you'll see all of them listed there. But they had a little preview of what happens next in Star Trek Prodigy, a great preview of Star Trek Picard Season 3, which again, I won't say anything about, watch it yourself, but I was like, whoa, exciting, looking forward to that. Hopefully it picks up and does. So I like Season 1 and 2, right? So there are some people who didn't like it so much. I liked it, although it wasn't always great. There were lots of parts that could have been better. So I'm hoping that Season 3 just knocks it out of the park with what they have and with who they have. I really, 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 really hope that this is a great epic story. I hope so anyway. Yeah. And I think there was like a still photo from Star Trek Discovery. Yep. Okay, whatever. Hopefully that series will pick up. And there was a brief scene from Strange New Worlds too. So they showed Season 2. So that was pretty cool.
I've been hearing that's been doing well. Actually,
Strange New Worlds was excellent. It was excellent. I loved it. I loved the first season, so I'm looking forward to more.
Cool.
All right. I think we should wrap it up there. Is there any other entertainment, or are we entertained enough?
I think we've been entertained enough.
Yeah.
Just for us, I think when this podcast comes out, will be our AFL finals.
Grand final,
thing.
yeah, that's right.
Well, it's been happening. So for us Aussies, well, AFL final series is on its way, and soon enough we'll find out the grand final. And sports.
More on that to come.
Wise. Yep, sports wise, we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right, so before we do finish up the show, we want to thank you for joining us for episode 84 of the Catholics of Oz, and we'd love to thank our patrons who make this show possible. So we have Andreas S., Jesse K., Began F., Patrick W., and Paul B. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give, they make it possible for the Catholics of Oz and all of our other shows all of the other shows on the network, not our shows, sorry, but all of the other shows on the network to continue. I just made myself CEO for a second there. Whoops, sorry. Yep, I'm waiting for that pink slip that says you're fired to come along now. So, but if you would like to support, email, that's it. Yep. If you would like to join our patrons in supporting the show financially, if you can visit them by joining sqpn.com/give. And don't forget to pray for the network as well, because your prayers are so important too, as we continue to discern the network's mission for God as part of God's mission.
This is Dom Bettinelli, CEO of StarQuest. I need to ask for your help, but first I want to thank you for listening to StarQuest and supporting our mission of exploring the intersection of faith and pop culture. In order to continue that mission and create more new shows, we need to bring on more audio editors, video editors, and production equipment. If you value this show, we need to hear from you now. If you're not yet one of our monthly patrons, please become one. And if you're already a patron, please consider increasing your monthly donation. There are many special patron benefits we'd like to give you, and you can learn about them by going to sqpn.com/give and clicking Become a Patron. Please go to sqpn.com/give today.
Also, we'd love to know your thoughts on topics we've discussed today. You can send us feedback by visiting sqpn.com/Oz, where you can also find show notes and links for today's episode. You can go to Discord, sqpn.com/Discord, and leave comments directly there where we see them. You can go to StarQuest's Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuest Media, or Twitter @SQPN, or search for SQPN on Instagram. So on all the socials, we're there as well. And also we have our own Catholics of Oz Facebook page, facebook.com/Catholics of Oz, spelled OZ. And lastly, if you like good old email, you can still send us email at catholicsofOz@sqpn.com. Lino, thank you so much for being part of episode 84 today.
1984. Oh, sorry, you just picked up good memories of it. So good. 1984.
I was 3 years old. I was 3 years old in 1984. Yeah.
I think we started prep. Oh, so good.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have been a bit of prep around then. Yeah. Good old Holy Family Primary. Yeah, good times. Yeah. Transformers was a cartoon. Voltron was a cartoon in the morning. Yeah, yep.
Oh, so 80s. Okay, we're going to 80s nostalgia? Maybe not.
Yeah. Oh, there's our next entertainment segment. All right, so all right. And once again, I'm Lindsay Said. Thank you so much for listening to episode 84 of the Catholics of Oz on StarQuest.
StarQuest wants to hear from you. We're conducting a survey of our audience. That's you, to help us in our planning for the future. Please take a moment and visit sqpn.com/survey. We'll be selecting 2 participants to receive an Amazon gift card as an expression of our thanks. So visit sqpn.com/survey today.